Hello coders, good afternoon, good evening in fact. Let me just close that down. Hope everybody's doing well. Today I want to talk about the How to Code Well roadmap for 2021, and also we're going to talk about, which I'll probably do first, a review of How to Code Well 2020, because we didn't really fulfill all the tasks and challenges that I set out in the roadmap for 2020, unfortunately, but we did do a lot of stuff that I didn't put on that roadmap we completed. So I've got a book here, I've got a little sort of notepad here. It's new, it's a new one, new year, and we're going to go through some of it. Before I start, I've just got a note that I've looked on here that I've just seen. Before I start, I should say why I've been away, because I have been away from Twitch, YouTube, podcast, and other bits and pieces for quite some time, a good month or so. So I've just been super busy with work, incredibly busy with work. I'm a contractor, and I'm working on a very big project. And I've been doing a lot of work out of hours. So I won't talk about the project itself or the technical bits and pieces, but just know that it's not that I haven't been not wanting to do any code or YouTube stuff. It's just that a lot of my time has been consumed with overtime and other bits and pieces like that to help with the client stuff. Unfortunately, that's just the way it rolls. That happens sometimes. So I kind of have to factor that into how I would like to progress How to Code Well going forward. And the contracting stuff takes precedent, really. I do all of the How to Code Well stuff in the evenings and the weekends. And recently I've been using those evenings and weekends to work on this doing some overtime for this project that I'm working on, and so obviously the How to Code Well stuff has been reduced somewhat. Hence the fact that we haven't had any tutorials out, because they take time. They usually take a good weekend to script, to record, to edit, and to upload. So we don't have any. Unfortunately, we don't have any tutorials that are ready to go out. I'm hoping in the coming weekends, when things start to ease off a little bit, I'll be able to get back here into the studio and do some more recording, some more tutorials. I've been listening to all of your comments. I know exactly what you want in terms of the tutorials and stuff. So hopefully they'll go through the year, and I'll be able to fulfill those. Which is really exciting. I've got a list of courses and tutorials that I would like to do this year. But yes, just to let you know, it isn't the fact that I've given up coding or anything. It's just because I've been coding too much. And even when the coding stops, my brain doesn't stop. So I need to take some time out to actually sort of defrag my head, if you know what I mean, to sort of realign the focus to How to Code Well on those evenings and weekends. It's got to a point, I suppose, where I'm waking up thinking about the project, going to sleep thinking about the project, and dreaming about the project. So I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining one bit. You just get into a bit of the zone, if you will. Anyway, we're not talking about that. We're talking about How to Code Well, howtocodewell.net, and where it's going in 2021. There is some really interesting things that I want to do, and there is some really big lessons that I learned in 2020. I mean, it's come very apparent that I can't plan very well. I can't plan very well. Typical developer, my estimates are completely rubbish. And I either overcomplicate the solution, or I think that the solution it will be done in a few hours. It's not a great mix. So a lot of lessons there, and also a lot of lessons with the technical stuff as well. I have a list actually of all the things that we achieved. Actually, what I'll do is I'll talk about all the things that I wanted to achieve. So the things I wanted to achieve in 2020 was to get this website out, to have the ability for people to log in and subscribe, and also have the ability for people to join on a premium plan, and therefore How to Code Well would finally be making some money and supporting itself, because at the moment it's not, and it hasn't done for years. So that was the plan, and unfortunately we haven't got to that point yet. However, we do have a new website, and I'll talk about all of those things in a minute, and we are in a really good place. There is so many things that we've done last year that I didn't think I would need to do, that has put us into a better place for it. So, for example, I've got just a list here of some of the things. I didn't put all of them in. Some of the things, because I want to get into the 2021 roadmap. So just some of the things that we did. You have to bear in mind, when we started 2020, we had the very old school Symfony website. And I guess I should say the How to Code Well website is supposed to be, or will be, the platform for people to log in, to subscribe, to learn how to code well through the tutorials that I have, and the resources that I've got. So it's an education platform. Essentially, that's what I'm trying to build here. And so at the start of the year, we had this very basic Symfony 2.8, I think it was, Symfony 2.8 site that was very out of date. And I was literally, it was mostly hard-coded in Twig. It was not touched at all, and it was full of bugs, full of issues. And so what my task for 2020 was to recreate that using a static site, and using an API, and using a load of code that I had already created in the previous years, way back in 2018, bringing all of my ideas together to build an API, to build the site in a static fashion, and to integrate the blog and other bits and pieces like that. Before this, there was a script that I had created in Python that was pulling all of the YouTube tutorials, building those into playlists and stuff. But that was very flaky and it failed, and YouTube changed the API, and I just didn't have time to fix it, so my endpoints and stuff. So I just basically let that code rot, knowing that I was going to rebuild this in 2020, and we did. We did. In 2020, we replaced the front end with Gatsby, all of the front end. And that was a huge mammoth task to do that. That was ginormous. Not only did I need to learn Gatsby, but it became very apparent that my React knowledge was very limited. But I've learned so much since then. So we replaced the front end with Gatsby. We've deployed it on AWS, so it's now using AWS infrastructure. So beforehand, this was just an SSH box that I would just SSH into very infrequently and update. So now it's done in AWS, and I'm really happy with that. Like I said, it's a static site, so it uses AWS Amplify. The back end is also in AWS as well, using EC2s. And also Terraform and Ansible. These are two technologies that I learned last year to sort that out, which again, so we've already talked about three technologies: Gatsby, Ansible, and Terraform, that I didn't know back in 2019. So lots of learning in 2020, which is great. We also upgraded to Symfony 5 from Symfony 2.8 to Symfony 5, which was huge. Which was a big step in the right direction. I've also open sourced the code notes. So the code notes are the notes for each of the tutorials. And these give a little bit more insight and in-depth knowledge. They bridge knowledge gaps that the videos may have. Or they explain the solutions and the code things in different ways. which is great. And I've open sourced that. I foolishly thought that I could be able to write all those code notes in a single month, but there's like over 100, so that's not going to happen. So I've open sourced it, and the community on the Discord server, some members have actually been writing code notes as well, which is great. So I'm so glad. I'm so happy that I did that. Okay. Another really big technical thing that we did last year is we merged I had all of my previous code, the back-end code, was all put in different repositories because I was sort of tackling the different problems in different ways. And I had this crazy notion of let's do everything in microservices. But I kept tripping up on myself again and again and again. So what we did is we merged the microservices back into sort of a monolith. I mean, really, it's not that big of an application anyway, so it didn't really warrant the need for microservices. But that was one of those technical decisions that I was struggling with, because for a large part of the year I had the purist view, a very naive purist view of everything should be in microservices because that's the way you should do it. But in fact, putting everything in microservices when they don't need to be in microservices is just giving you more problems that you don't need. So we integrated them all back into a single platform, and it's working quite well. Lastly, we also used Ghost to handle the blog. Again, Ghost was something that we didn't have before, and I've created Ghost, and it's really hooks quite well into Gatsby using Markdown files and other bits and pieces like that. So, I mean, there's more. I could go on and on and on. There was so much we did last year. And I'm not gonna go through it all because it gets a bit sort of like boring, I guess. So we did a lot of stuff last year. A lot of the stuff that I've mentioned doesn't really follow the pattern of the things that I wanted to do in 2020, and that was to get the subscription side of it working. There was a lot of stuff I had to do that I didn't think I would need to do, or I just didn't plan for, and I didn't plan for very well. So, for example, the course notes, open and sourcing those, upgrading to Symfony 5, all of those kind of things, I didn't think I would need to do in order to get to achieve what I set out to achieve, which I unfortunately didn't. So that's what we did in 2020. And by the way, all of this that I've mentioned, I was doing on Twitch. Okay, so if you want to watch how I did all that, then you can go back and have a look through the old VODs. So I wrote in January, sort of the start of January, sort of the period between December and January, sort of that Christmas bit where everybody doesn't really know what day it is. I wrote a bunch of objectives that I want to achieve in 2021. These are very high level, and not a lot of these will actually be done. These are just things that I would like to do. If I was able to do this on a full-time job and someone was to pay me to do this, then these are the things that I would like to do. So I mean, you've got to kind of look, you've got to plan high, and then you've got to be realistic. So this is planning high. This isn't realism. So yes. So first up, get paying customers and rolling into courses. That is like number one. Let's make this site actually make money. Number two is to get 50% of the course notes completed. And that was kind of the course notes. Like I said, there's over 125 course notes. There's a lot of stuff, right? You can think of these as like individual blog posts. If I can get half of those done in a year, that would be wonderful. And also, you've got to remember that for each tutorial, there is a course note. So if we were to go through last year's schedule, where I was pushing a tutorial every Monday, you then you not only have 125 course notes that are in the backlog, but you also have a new one every week. So you have to do at least 2 a week before you can actually make a dent in it. So That's why I put the 50% on. Make the content searchable. So this is Elasticsearch. I would like to put the content, the transcripts. That's another thing that we're doing. Transcripts, the transcripts, the code notes, the course descriptions, all of that stuff in Elasticsearch, and then allow that to be searchable. The next one is to integrate the podcast into the API and put that into Ghost, right? So at the moment, the podcast site is a single sort of static site that hasn't got any interaction at all with the main site. And I could do that. I could use RSS feeds to pull all the content through, or I could put that, like I said, in Ghost and have like a blog post per podcast. That would be another way of doing it, perhaps. The next one is to get free users on the site, because it's not always going to be premium stuff. I mean, I'm working on I want to do this free first, and then think about maybe premium stuff. So get the free users on the site. Open source the front end in React components. So I would love to do that. I would love to make this more open source and really split it up into smaller little components that I could share. That would be really, really good. Put the database into RDS, because at the moment it's not. It's just in containers and Docker, and I think it would be great if it was in RDS. It would probably scale better and perform better and all of that stuff. CI everything. So this is continual integration. So we have some CI scripts, some continual integration scripts for checking things like PHP stan, PHP MD, PHP depend, PHP linter, and all of that jazz. But they're not triggered automatically. They are just ran whenever I run the command. So having that into some sort of continuing integration where it's continually checking the code for code quality and stuff, that would be really, really good and very helpful. And it's one of those things that you kind of really need to do sort of like as one of the first foundation things of a project. Otherwise, it can be quite frustrating to sort of shoehorn it in. It certainly can be done, but when you're starting to play with Docker and all that stuff to run various scripts, it gets quite troublesome. So on that, I have been using Circle CI to handle the deployments of certain aspects of this project, mainly the front end. And I would like eventually to use Circle CI, possibly Circle CI. I'm not sponsored by Circle, by the way. I just like their stuff. I could potentially use Circle CI to deal with the continual integration. And then after that, of course, it's continual deployment. Number 9 is to increase the unit tests to 75%. Now, this is interesting. I was doing some testing on the project the other evening, and I've managed to get the test. We've got about 460 tests. They cover integration, unit tests, and API tests. This is all on the back end, of course, and acceptance tests. So we've got about 460, maybe 480, something along those. It's less than 500. So we've got less than 500 tests, more than 560, whatever. And altogether, they hit 70% of the code coverage altogether. But I want to just focus on the unit tests and get those up to 75%. That would be awesome if I could do that. There's obviously complexities there, like you can't unit test controllers because they're integration or functional tests. So you can't do that, but if there was a way of excluding those controllers, running the tests, finding out what kind of code coverage I've got, and then using that as the ballpark, that would be nice. So 75% is the goal. And then I've got a bunch of courses that I want to complete. And then also I want to use some Google tracking to track user behavior in the site and see if I can, plot some graphs and charts, put that in the CMS. And I've got some events that I would like to track. So log in, log out, enrolling, viewing the tutorial, password resets, viewing a course, payment, thank you, getting onto the thank you page, and my account stuff. That would be pretty useful. Excuse me. So they're my high level objectives, my big sort of things. And then I think on the next page I have like ideas for like the future. So yeah, one is to create a mobile app for education. So like a mobile education app which uses HowToCodeWell, so you can sort of have I was kind of thinking maybe an app per discipline: HTML, CSS, JavaScript, PHP, Python, that kind of stuff. And it may give you some like test quizzes or something like that. That would be lovely if I could get that. If I could do something like that, that would be really cool. I want to do a lot with Elasticsearch because I think that with the podcast, with the tutorials, with the code notes, with the transcripts and all that jazz, it would be nice to put them all in one bucket and just allow cross domain searching. So, for example, if someone was to search a particular function in the HowToCodeWell site, I could search through the podcast to see if I've mentioned that, through the transcripts. I could look for that function name in the tutorials, in the transcripts, and I could look for that function name in perhaps the blog post as well, and have some way of sort of displaying a search page where you are offered either the podcast, the blog posts, the tutorials, that kind of stuff. And I would be using Elasticsearch to power that. I've been doing a lot of Elasticsearch in the contract world, and I really do like Elasticsearch. Okay, interactive learning journey. This is something that someone mentioned on a Twitch stream, coming up with some sort of learning journey where you can sort of almost ask the user what they want to learn, where they want to be, in terms of like, I want to be a front-end developer or I want to be a back-end developer, and then offering the content that I have to sort of tailor the results to those kind of questions, possibly. Create a mobile app specifically for the podcast. That would be awesome. And also something I started to do way back last year was I started to write a book for Docker. And I wouldn't mind finishing that. Although that's just kind of left. I'll probably rewrite it. Anyway, so they're the things that I would love to do, but they are unrealistic targets. They are just like jotted down notes of things that I would like to achieve one day. And then what I did is, once I had that done and the high level objectives, I then created sort of I boiled down those things into quarters. So I split 2021 into quarters, and I did a lot of reflecting on what I wanted to achieve in 2020. I had a look at these notes, and then I sort of boiled it down into 4 work groups, 4 work packages. So the first one is January to March. That's Q1. Q2 is April to June. Q3 is July to September, and Q4 is October to December. And I've made many sort of revisions of this. And one thing I learned last year was the fact that a lot of things went into different months, and there wasn't really a clean sort of line to say, I want to get these things achieved by this date. Everything just sort of started to slip. And then when it got to October, September, it was just kind of a free-for-all, basically. And I wasn't in any position to get the project out the door and have users actually logging in, and even premium users signing up. So unfortunately, what I've done for 2021 is just try and carve out designated portions of time in these 4 quarters. So Q1 has to be, this is January to March. In Q1, we have to get that login sorted. We have to be able to allow people to log in on production. You can do it in the beta, and that's another thing that we did actually in 2020 is we created a beta site, and there are people on the Discord server who have been testing the beta site out for me, which is great. So user testing, which is brilliant, but it's a bit flaky and it doesn't do everything that I want it to do. The whole registration and login stuff, I'm not happy with the back end, and also I would like to build social login, so social sign-on. So if you've got a GitHub account or a Facebook account or a Google account, then I would like people to be able to sign into the system, the education platform that I'm building, How to Code Well, using those things. And one of the real reasons for this is GitHub, to be fair, because all of the projects that I'm doing will be in GitHub in private repositories, which you could access if you logged in through GitHub, or if you were like a premium member. I would give you the code for those certain projects, and so having the ability to log in on GitHub, I could then do some sort of dynamic auto magic stuff, I suppose, where your GitHub account interacts with the How to Code Well GitHub organization, maybe, and you could request an automatic fork of one of the repositories if it was a project that you were looking on. I think I think there's a lot of things that I could do in that sort of space. The trouble is, though, with social sign-on, it changes the whole mechanism for logging in and authentication and authorization and all of that jazz. And the problem that I have at the moment is the stuff that I've got is just simply inflexible. And so there's a lot of like back-end work that I'm having to do to sort of get this to put this social sign-on stuff in. And so I mean, you won't see any of this because this is all background stuff, to be fair. But it's something that I need to do, obviously, before it actually goes out. Putting social sign-on a website after it's launched is very difficult. So I want to get that done. If I can get that done by March, then I will, or February, which is only a few days away. I want to look at 2FA, two-form authentication, and maybe implement that. But that is, again, that's very, very complicated. So I don't know. I mean, I say until March, and it does sound like a long time, but you have to remember that the only time I can do this and write this code is evenings and weekends, and also whenever I'm live on Twitch. And when I'm live on Twitch, I'm not necessarily in the zone, just totally focused on the code, because I'm obviously interacting with everybody else on Twitch and all of this stuff, and making sure that things are okay, keeping the chat going and all of that jazz. So I'm not sat down just in a darkened room just focusing on the code. There's an element of a performance, I suppose, on Twitch. Dare I say. So in Q1, that's all I want to do. Social sign-on in Q1 with the potential of 2FA if I ever get to it. But, that might have to be something that we push back. Q2, I want to get paid subscriptions working in Q2. Now, this should have been in last year, in December, because the whole point was I wanted this done by November, and then we did the idea was a big marketing push in December, but that never happened. So at the moment, with the beta site, it's free to log in, right? Which is fine, which is perfectly fine. And like I said, I want to do free first. But in April to come June, I want to allow for paid users, and they will get premium content. They will get content and code and more resources and other bits and pieces like that. So I want to bring that into play, and that is a lot of work because I need to integrate Stripe, which is broken at the moment on the current site. It's not, the features aren't aren't in use at the moment. But they've changed upgraded their SDK, and my code doesn't meet the requirements, so I need to update that. So that's what I want to do in Q2, and you probably notice a pattern here. I'm only putting in very small amounts of things. In terms of numbers of things, it's only small. The first Q is going to be social sign-on. Second quarter is going to be paid subscriptions. So there isn't anything else I'm putting in as high priority. It's just these two. Q3 is July to September. I want to be looking in the third quarter into discount codes and Elasticsearch. So discount codes, for the paid subscribers, there will be like a discount code to get, a few months free, perhaps. I could also do something where I look at the free subscribers and see how long they've been subscribed for, and then maybe offer them a free couple of months based on how many days that they've been a free subscriber for. I don't know, something like that. I need to work out the mechanics of that in my head, whether it's going to be money off, whether it's going to be a percentage, whether it's going to be 3 months or something. I don't know. I haven't really worked that through, but I would like to have something that is extremely flexible and allow me to have a discount code that I can send to people through email or what have you. And then Elasticsearch. So like I said, there's a lot of things that I would like to do with Elasticsearch, but I think in Q3, all I would like to do is just get Elasticsearch running and start getting scripts being put into it. Start creating commands that put content into Elasticsearch, not without necessarily worrying about reading from it, more to do with writing to it. And then maybe thinking about that more in 2022 as to what we do with all of that data. Q4. Now, this is an interesting one, and the thing is, I'm taking a lot of insight from what happened in 2020. Basically, like I said, in 2020, October, September onwards, it was basically a bit of a free-for-all because I kind of realized that I wasn't going to achieve all the things that I had set out to do, and there was so much things that I had to fix. I've decided in Q4, which is October to December, is going to be maintenance mode. Maintenance mode being that there isn't going to be any major features being added to the project. It's just going to be me maintaining it. I'm sure there is going to be a lot of bugs that I've got to fix and deal with. And also bearing in mind that by the end of Q2, we should hopefully have paid subscriptions, which means that my priorities will have to change from being a developer to being a customer support person, right? So if there's any bugs coming through, then I need to fix those pronto and prioritize those because people are paying for the service that I'm providing. So I want Q4 to be in maintenance mode, really. And I don't want to be putting anything major into the project around October and December unless I have to, unless it's a big fix for something. But basically, by Q4, I want the platform to be stable and used. So that's it. I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot, right? Q1 is social sign-on, Q2 is paid subscriptions, Q3 is discount codes, Elasticsearch, and Q4 is maintenance. But if I was to use last year's lessons and look at what we achieved in last year and all the things that we did that I hadn't actually thought that I would need to do, then I've left a lot of gaps and a lot of room for maneuver, I think, especially with Q4. I don't want to be doing anything in Q2 or Q3 which is going to screw up Q4, which is the maintenance mode. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I'm a little bit apprehensive, I suppose, compared to last year, because I just know that last year we didn't finish everything that we set out to do. So Q4 is kind of my way of giving myself a bit of a buffer, I suppose. So if any of these slip into one of the months, then I've got a month any of the 3 months, I've got a quarter to to catch up on, perhaps. I don't know. There's also things that I have to kind of factor in, which is very difficult to factor in, but I need to anyway. And that's things like illness and going on holiday, and also work. So work takes priority. The contracting takes priority. If I am asked to work evenings to get a project out the door, then I will work evenings to get the project out the door. Which has a knock-on effect, because that means that I'm tired. That means I can't think straight. The days, the weekends, I kind of just need to just not do anything. But who knows? Who knows? There was a couple of other bits and pieces, like a little bit more in-depth stuff. So yeah, with the subscriptions, it's quite difficult. This is Q2. So with subscriptions, it's like, you can change your subscription from monthly to yearly. So it's upgrade, downgrade. You can upgrade from a free subscription to a paid subscription, or downgrade. So there's all sorts of nuances there. There's different emails that I need to create. So email templates, different APIs, different Stripe integrations. And then with the whole subscription thing, there's this, there's the rolling subscription. So you have to make sure that just because someone has signed up for something, they are actually getting billed properly each month when that happens. So there's issues with dates and other bits and pieces like that. Then there is enrolling. So enrolling in courses, sessions, and all of that jazz that I need to work on. So session cookies and HTTP only cookies. All sorts of complexities that I've got down here. Yeah. I mean, I won't bore you with all of that stuff, but there's a lot of stuff. I basically sort of looked at each one of these quarters and went, right, what is it that I actually need to achieve, and let's try and break this down. I've got I don't know if I can show you on screen, but I've got like diagrams and all of that stuff that I've created, some sort of diagrams to talk about authorization and authentication of various bits and pieces. And yeah, it's all a bit heavy. It's all a bit heavy, but I think those 4 quarters, I think they're good. I think they're good as they are. So that's the problem. I have so many ideas, and I've got so many sort of like things that I want to do, and I don't want this to be one of those things where I do half of it and then move on to something else because I get bored of it, or it doesn't work, or what have you. Anyway, that's me. That is the that is what I wanted to talk about. The How to Code Well 2021 podcast. Roadmap. This is a podcast. Whatever. I will be putting more tutorials on soon. I just need to find time to do them and find time to do this as well. I was actually thinking of taking a year out of tutorials just to get this project out the door and sort of in a better state than it is. So that might be on the cards, I don't know. But I will let everybody know when a new tutorial comes out. But anyway, happy coding, everybody, and I will see you again soon. Take care. I'm going to finish my beer that I haven't even started yet. Cheers. Bye-bye.